few minutes late, having prompted chairs at this end. But I think we are now. Okay, good evening, members. Okay, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the District Development Management Committee. Just for the webcast, I will do a few introductions before we start the meeting. My name is Councillor Sue Jones and I chair this committee. To my right, I have Councillor Brian Rolfe, my vice chair, and to his right, we have members of Democratic Services who will be taking minutes during the webcast and available for advice on the proceedings of the meeting. To my left, we have, we're highly privileged to have Nigel Richardson this evening, who is the Service Director of Planning Services. And even despite COVID, it's actually 2 years since he's done a planning meeting. So we've got to treat him gently. He really is looking forward to it. And but yes, no, so it's lovely to see Nigel. Nigel will of course be talking us through the two applications in front of us this evening. We have no members of the public this evening, so therefore there is no need to give any advice on item 2 of the agenda. Just very finally, in my introduction, I need to note that I will be a voting chairman tonight. Okay, I think that takes us on to a... Sorry? A webcasting introduction is a very good idea, yes. And Gary's going to do that for us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing or other such use by third parties. Therefore, by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. If any public speakers on Zoom, which we don't have tonight, do not wish to have their image captured, they should ensure that their video setting throughout the meeting is turned off and set to audio only. Please be aware that if technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, the Chairman may need to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. And so that covers us up until item 3. So we go back to Gary for apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillors Hadley and Councillor Lee.
And are there any substitute members today?
No, Chairman, we have no substitute members today.
Thank you. That takes us on to item 5, declarations of interest. I would suggest, members, that as both applications are in front of us this evening, because they are applications made by members of the council, that we actually all do a sort of blanket declaration initially. It's a non-pecuniary, but by virtue of the fact that we know both those as fellow members on council. If there is anybody who needs to make a further declaration of interest, I'd ask you to show a hand now. Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Is that okay and that's sufficient? Thank you. Right. Item 6. It's just reconfirming. We've already confirmed those minutes on the 17th of March. There are no further minutes at the moment. Item 7, as always, is for noting members. It is the Epping Forest District Local Plan Submission version. It's our normal policy briefing note about the how we need to take that on board and into consideration when making tonight's decisions. Okay, in that case, members, we can move on to item 8. This is planning application EPF 1186/21 at Forest Side, Baldwins Hill in Loughton. And I'm going to pass you straight over to Nigel, who's going to introduce and explain the application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So the planning application for an extension on a house, which is, it's not, the report says it's not in a conservation, that's true, but it's close to a conservation area. It's also close to Greenbelt, but it's not within the Greenbelt. So the impact of an extension on the character of the conservation area could still be relevant if members consider that to be so in terms of its proximity. So This is an extension onto a property. I think I'll go back to this again. It was the last property in the road. As you can see, there's a break before the forest area. The conservation area is actually, there's two conservation areas in Baldwin's Hill. Ash Green, I think I'm right saying this is the York Hill Conservation Area. Councillor Pond will know this. But further along Baldwin's Hill, there is Baldwin's Hill Conservation Area. But as I say, this property, these three properties actually are not within conservation area. So this is the ground floor and existing first floor of the property. This is the first floor and ground floor. Okay, and you can see next door's property in relation to that. There's no house on this side. So the proposal is to build a single-storey extension and to add roof lights into the pitch roof of this extension. So I've got some elevations. That's the existing rear elevation and the proposed rear elevation. So there you can see the extension. The top part of it is glazed, and on the side, this is a side elevation showing that top part glazed, and on the elevation looking towards the forest, these are two of the roof lights proposed in the existing extension. So this gives you an idea of the relationship to the house next door. There's actually a loft conversion taking place, but this is a certificate of lawful development. This didn't require planning permission. You can see next door's house is on slightly higher level, so there is a difference in levels between the two properties. This is a view from next door, this first top left-hand corner. And this is a view looking back. Quite a nice view, isn't it? Across the forest at the rear. Front of the property. The front of the property is not affected. And there's a footprint of the building. So that extension's going in here. Roof lights going into there, to here. You can see the relationship with next door's property and the back of their house and the relationship with the forest behind. A couple more aerial photos from different directions. Like I say, that's where that extension's going in here. Okay, so the issues are, does it affect the neighbour next door? The neighbour next door has objected. Officers do not consider it will have a harmful impact upon the amenities of that property. And as you can see, the rear of that property actually already projects back. And then the other issue that's been raised by Loughton Town Council is that the glass roof lanterns on the rear extension and the roof lights on the side returns, which are close to the forest, will cause light pollution and result in a detrimental effect on the wildlife of the forest and the habitat. Officers don't think that's a strong enough reason for refusal, and I think if you take into consideration what existing light must already be present here with the windows, I don't know if that swimming pool is lit up at any time. There's a pond here, but I would argue that there is an element of light pollution already, and this isn't a significant reason to refuse planning permission. Finally, there's a roughly around here, I think there's a street light, that the nice conservation style street light, but the lights are relatively bright actually, and there's residential properties opposite. So if I take you back to, so there's residential properties opposite as well. So officers' recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to a number of conditions which are on pages 13 and 14, a couple of which are controlled tree protection, and there's a usual hours of construction, wheel washing and materials. Thank you, Gina.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Members, any comments, discussions, questions? Councillor Rackham.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that presentation. I just wondered if any of the properties next to the property where they're looking to put this extension on have had any work done and if they've been extended. Thank you.
Let's go to the photos. I would assume, I don't know the answer, but I would assume so, looking at that. Looking at the footprint of this house, I think it's a fair bet that that's been extended here in the roof. Could even be here as well. So I would say, yeah, looks like these are the properties. They're all larger, aren't they, than that, the application site.
That makes sense, thank you. Councillor Pond.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I can guide Mr. Richardson as to the conservation area status. Until 1996, this was in the conservation area. When Nigel Richardson's late colleague Paul Sutton said that a number of properties in what was then the one undivided Loughton conservation area did not sit worthy of the protection conservation area status afforded. That's why, as Nigel Richardson says, there's a very nice conservation area style lamppost there, which was put in before 1996. So the decision, conscious decision, was taken to exclude this little enclave of building from the conservation area. I do accept the Town Council's comment that there will be a degree of light pollution from this, but as the officer says, there is a fairly substantial and rather bright street lamp very close to the site. The next door house, which is quite a bulky affair, as he's just pointed out, has ample means of illumination at numerous windows, and I don't think the degree of harm from the forest, which behind is about 120 feet behind, plus with that swimming pool he pointed out, I don't think that will have any effect. And the very small amount emanating from windows in the garage area on the northern flank of the proposal, I think will be de minimis. So although I don't particularly like these very large extensions, and I particularly don't like roof extensions where they are very commonly applied under PDR, I don't think there is anything in this application which would merit our refusing it.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you. On the light pollution, I agree with Councillor Pond, but presumably they could put a landscaping scheme in the back and light the whole garden with sort of floodlights without requiring permission. I'm not sure if that's the case. I can't see too much reason to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members? In that case, members, we will go to the vote. The recommendation is that we grant conditional planning permission, those conditions being listed on pages 13 and 14 of your report.
One small comment to make on the conditions. Doesn't affect refusal or accept. That is relating to the wheel washing condition, where it says that or other cleaning facilities for vehicles leaving the site shall be installed. Surely we should have some say under, if we're not having wheel washing, what sort of cleaning facilities those would be. It wouldn't in fact be very suitable to have a clothes brush hanging up on a hook by the front gate.
Yes, sorry, can you just clarify where you're looking? I'm looking at condition 7.
So am I, yes. Yes.
Wheel washing or other cleaning facilities. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, I'm with you.
I think we should simply say other cleaning facilities approved by the local planning authority. Otherwise, I have no objection at all.
Yes, that makes eminent sense. Happy with that, councillors? That amendment on that condition 7. Okay, so in that case, we are voting. The recommendation is to grant conditional planning permission with the conditions on page 13 and 14 of your report, with that minor amendment to condition 7 regarding the wheel washing. All those in favour of granting planning permission, please show.
Unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you. Planning permission has been granted. Right, moving on to the second item for tonight. This is item EPF 1702/21 at 229 High Street, Epping. And the report starts on page 19 of your agenda. And I'll pass straight over to Nigel to introduce it to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, if it's acceptable, I could take items 9 and 10 together. So to make that clear, that's the advertisement consent application, which is EPF 1702/21, and then the accompanying listed building consent application, which is EPF/1800/21. Just make it clear, they're exactly the same proposals. Okay, so this relates to a commercial property. It's a mid-terrace building, and it's located on the northwestern side of the High Street. It's within the key frontage of the local plan in the town centre of Epping, and that's denoted by the red marked site location. Okay. So what's proposed is an advertisement consent, and it's to display an illuminated aluminium white fascia sign. It's stencil cut, so what that means is the sign in front of you here, the whole of this white area will not be illuminated, but the stencil cut is the lettering Millers, and the illumination actually sits, is LED lighting literally around each individual letter. So just to make it clear, the M&S underneath is just an example. That's not a sign, because it just happens to be a Marks and Spencer's a couple of doors down. That's not an example from that Marks and Spencer's, but that's the kind of effect it would have around each of those letters. So just make it clear, the rest of this sign is not illuminated at all. So it will be an aluminium, folded aluminium sign. So as I said, there's a listed building application to go with this as well, because it is a listed building and it's in a conservation area. So if you'll note in the report that there is objections from the Epping Society. That's on page 24. They consider it's they feel that any form of lighting to this listed building in a conservation area needs a formal technical description, but I think the main thing is that they are opposed to the lighting, and it says a parish council, because it's Epping Town Council, who will also object to the internal illuminated sign. But then if you look further through the report, the council's conservation officer has also objected to the application, and quoted from policies in the local plan. She's quoted both the adopted local plan policies and the emerging local plan policies. So I think you may be asking the question, well, okay then, so officers, you're recommending approval for this. So clearly we do take into account what the conservation officer says, but I think we feel that a more rounded opinion on this, and if you look at the bottom of page 25, the conservation officer's objection, and then underneath that it does comment that the proposal will have a less than significant additional impact on the special significance to the listed building over and above, and it refers to a previous Abbott sign which has now been removed. So that's a sign that used to be there, and I recall the sign being there. It's not the latest sign, but that is a sign that's now been removed, and it did have consent as a listed building application back in 1992. So that's a material consideration. That's the sign at the moment that's there, which is only a temporary sign. and this may be what you may be more familiar with, is the Black Horse Agency's Ambrose sign, which was the last sign that was there. No illumination, and it was just a painted timber sign. So it's actually quite useful looking at that frontage. There's M&S. Most of the illuminated signs in Epping are trough lit from the top, so they're externally illuminated. And there are a number that have swan neck type lighting, and I think Boots are an example of that. But in addition to that, there is an example of a similar illuminated sign to what Millers are proposing at Pizza Express, which is on the opposite side, and that has white lettering with like a halo lighting immediately behind it. So there are other examples, but I think the thing that in the end persuaded officers to recommend to grant planning permission in this case is the low level of lighting associated with it. So the maximum luminance of the sign is measured in candelas, and in this case is 180 candelas per square metre. So that's quite low lighting. There's examples where we've allowed 800 up to 1,200 candelas per square metre, but you do need to consider, of course, this is a conservation area and it is a listed building. So taking all those things into consideration, despite the objections and concerns, it's the letter only that is illuminated. The letters will protrude through the fascia and will have blocked out vinyl to face, ensuring the glow is just created around the edge of each letter. And that's, at the end of the day, which has convinced us as officers to recommend to grant planning permission in this particular case, subject to the maximum luminance of the sign not exceeding 180 candelas per square metre, which is condition 1, and that the development shall be carried out strictly in accordance with the submitted plans. So I think that's probably all I know to say on that one, Chairman. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thanks very much indeed. That was actually a very detailed report. Thank you very much. Members, any comments, questions? Councillor Brady.
Can I ask the planning officer a very strange question? At the moment, Millers is depicted in black with interesting red bits and a green line underneath. The lighting that's planned, is this going to be white behind all the letters, or is it going to include red and green, or what? I hadn't really thought of it before, but as you've explained how it's going to be, I'm just wondering, is it going to be multicoloured or just white?
The intention, it will be white, but I think given the colouring, you may see a slight little shimmer of red, but predominantly you will see white. Good question, though.
Very good. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thanks. Yes, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, this issue about lighting Epping High Street sort of comes up pretty regularly. There's no doubt that low-level halo lighting is better than the sort of the box illuminated internal illuminations, which is what people tend to first think of when you say internally illuminated. And the scale of this is appropriate. I'm a bit concerned about some of the logic in the report. I mean, it's a conservation area, and therefore it's about preserving and enhancing the conservation area, not just keeping things necessarily as they are. And it does concern me that we're looking back 2 local plans ago to something in 1992 that we accept was substandard as justification for approving this. And I don't think that's a particularly strong argument, nor do I think the pandemic's a particularly strong argument. It might be for some businesses, but as I understand it, the property market actually has had its issues, but it's one of the stronger performing bits of the economy, and actually one of the few bits that didn't close down during lockdown. So, if the argument is this doesn't meet policy, but we'll let it through because there's been something worse in the past and the pandemic, I don't think that's a particularly robust basis for a decision. I mean, the conservation's argument isn't just about the lighting, it's about the aluminium box fascia as well, which we've not particularly heard about. I just wondered if perhaps planning officer could comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. The vinyl finish of the fascia is part and parcel of this application as well. And again, there are other examples of that in the conservation area. I suppose the preference would be to have a timber finish, but yeah, we think overall that finish is acceptable. But I do take on board what you say about the Abbott sign and the COVID pandemic, but they can be considerations, and we consider they are relevant in this case.
I didn't say they were considerations, but I think they have pretty little weight.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chair. I like the detailing below the fascia being retained, the stained glass fan lights being retained, and I think the white actually enhances the whole building instead of some of the garish colours that have been there previously and in other places. The issue is the background lighting, and I think at that level it's not going to have an impact. Do we know if it will be turned off at any time at night? Is there any restriction on the hours it will be actually lit?
Just turn your microphone, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there is information on that. I mean, I did drive through here last night when it was dark, and there were a number of signs that were still illuminated, so I'd consider that it wouldn't be the only light on in that parade. I think if it was, then we would have suggested that condition.
And Councillor Pond first, and then Councillor Brady.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The Black Horse Agency's painted sign, which is on show in the screen above, I think that was depicted when it was a kind of residual sign, because there had been a very bold, deep blue Abbott sign fixed over that one, and that was much more strident and in your face. And from my memory of the Black Horse Agency sign, that was illuminated in a different way by swan necks. But all this is a long time ago. As that picture there shows, this is actually a very interesting fascia, because it's got the dental cornice underneath the sign, which gives a clue as to its period. And then above it, and almost immediately above it, is the glazed front of what was a showroom. So there's a good deal of the building's history in this fascia, and I think it behoves the new owner or new lessee to treat it sympathetically. And I suppose the question arises, does this application treat this conservation area and listed building sufficiently sympathetically, or should it be refused and the applicant asked to go away and substitute something more in keeping? And I'm not sure how I would fall on that one. I don't know whether there have been any discussions between the applicant and the officers, but I think we should pay some credence to what the Conservation Officer advises, because we don't want to make any more unnecessary damage to these frontages than we have to. It has the benefit, I suppose, of being reversible, in that it doesn't seek to do anything really nasty to the frontage. I don't know when that frontage was put in, but I guess the plate glass windows were inserted sometime in the last 40 years. It would have been, I guess, smaller windows. And I think whatever happened tonight, the opportunity has been missed to say to the applicant, you've got a prize building here, you've got a very nice shop front of generally early 20th century ambience, you've got the special features of the dental cornice and the glazed showroom. Can't you do a bit better? But whether that is sufficient reason to refuse it, I'm not sure.
Thank you. Councillor Brady.
I could just come back briefly on this. I think, as has been mentioned earlier by another councillor, the question of lighting does come up again and again, whether it's here or other town centres. It's always coming up. And we have to decide, as Councillor Pond has said, how sympathetic the design is. And I understand what the Conservation Officer has said, and I understand what the General Planning Officers say. And I think the fact that we're all here tonight discussing this is wonderful. It shows how much care and thought is actually going into small things like this. And I think the reason that the Planning Officer has decided to recommend it is that this is a very subtle type of lighting. This is very, very subtle, low-key, as sympathetic as you can get. Yes, you could make some oldie-worldy sign, and, you know, as Mr. Richardson has said, made it out of wood or something or other, but to be honest, that's not in keeping with what the business is and how it's run and everything else. For a modern business of the type that estate agents that it is, that's a very subtle sign. That's not bright red, bright orange. That's nothing like that Abbott's sign before, which did absolutely nothing for Epping High Street, I would say. It may well, we will remember forever that Abbott's was there, I guess, but which is the point of it. But I think the sign in itself is subtle. As I think I have ascertained, it's not going to be bright red, bright green, and all the other colours of the rainbow. I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt and go along with the recommendation of the officers to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, members? Councillor Kesker.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to say I think this particular application is completely sympathetic to the conservation area. It's well designed, and I think it will be an improvement, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Pond, did I see a little wave there?
Forgot to mention, Chairman, that in the historical context, the fascia is too deep. It would only have been, that looks to me about 3 foot deep. It would only have been 2 foot, 18 inches, 2 feet deep. So it isn't historically accurate, but once again, we come back to the same issue. Should we go with this, or should we send it back for further discussion? And I don't really see much point in sending it back.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Right, any other further comments, members? In that case, I will take it to the vote. The recommendation is to grant planning permission with the 2 conditions on page 21. All those in favour of granting, please show.
10, Chairman.
Those
11, sorry. Yeah, 11.
And those against?
None, Chairman.
And any abstentions, members?
1, Chairman.
Thank you. Planning permission has been granted. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, now we need to also now follow straight away with the listed building application, which is officially item 10 on the agenda tonight. I don't think there's any further discussion unless there is any point to be made. But if we could vote on that, again, the recommendation is to grant planning permission. Oh, no, sorry, to grant listed building consent. I apologise. And with just the recommendation as on page 29. All those in favour of granting listed building consent, please show.
10, Chairman.
Those against?
None, Chairman.
And any abstentions, members?
2 abstentions, Chairman.
Okay, that's listed building consent is granted. Thank you very much indeed, members. That does actually, if you go back to the agenda, there is no item for the exclusion of public and press. So, members, I will close the meeting now at 7:35. Thank you very much indeed, members.